Ready to explore the cutting edge of digital infrastructure? I'm Carrie Charles, your host of Let's Get Digital. Join me as we dive into the ideas, technologies, and leaders transforming the way we connect. From wireless telecom to fiber networks, data centers, and beyond. Sponsored by Broadstaff in partnership with RCR Wireless News. Now, let's dive in and let's get digital.
Welcome to Let's Get Digital. I'm Carrie Charles, your host, and I am happy that you are here with me today. I have a wonderful show for you, so just grab a cup of coffee, sit down. You are going to love this. Today, lucky enough to have with me Andrés Irlando. He is the president and COO of the Zayo Group. Andrés, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you for having me, and thank you for inviting Zayo.
Yes. Well, let's just get right into it. I'd love to hear a little bit about your story first and how you got into this industry, how you got to your current seat. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm one of five children. I grew up in Colorado and California and went off to college on the East Coast and kind of had a roundabout way to this industry. I started out as a lawyer and worked in government and nonprofit work, and someone tapped me on the shoulder and asked me if I wanted to work for Verizon about 20 years ago, and I said no. And they said, why? And I said, I don't want to work for the telephone company. And they said, no, we're doing fiber. We're doing fiber to the home. At the time, we were doing Fios, and it's exciting. It's technology. And I thought I would join for a year. And 15 years later, 8 jobs later, I was still at Verizon until I came to Zayo 4 years ago because I wanted to get into a more entrepreneurial environment. I wanted to get into a private equity-backed environment. I could see the tailwinds in this industry, and I really loved the company, the asset, the people, the owners, and I jumped at the opportunity to join Zayo.
Well, Zayo has had some big news recently with the acquisition of Crown Castle's fiber business. So, I know Zayo has acquired a lot of companies over the years, but this is a huge deal for the industry and for Zayo. Walk us through the business rationale of why this acquisition makes sense for Zayo and why now.
Yeah, so as you know really well, Carrie, so Zayo today is the amalgamation of 50 companies. Crown's fiber assets will be number 51. So going all the way back to the beginning in 2007, Dan Caruso and the others who were here at the beginning had a vision for acquiring and consolidating different fiber assets into what is Zayo today. So we have a long history of M&A and acquisition and rolling up different parts of the industry. But even with that background, the coming together of Crown's fiber assets and Zayo today is bigger and more significant probably than any acquisition we've done to date. It does a few things. It strengthens our ability to offer mission critical connectivity solutions, because it allows us to take our very strong backhaul network and our strong presence in certain metro markets and expand our footprint pretty dramatically into new metro markets like Los Angeles, parts of Chicago that we're not in, Miami. It strengthens our position in New York and in the tri-state. So if you think about Zayo as a combination of a long-haul network and metro networks and a hub and spoke that surrounds all of this. This takes us into a lot more places across the country and ultimately gives us a stronger footprint in what we're already doing in terms of meeting the surge in demand that we see for bandwidth, for low latency fiber, for support of the AI demand that we see and the reindustrialization of North America that we see that heavily relies on fiber. So it's a great time to double down on our strategy of being the de facto builder and operator of fiber optic networks for enterprise customers.
What does this mean for the industry as a whole?
I think it's truly a game changer for the industry, because what the industry has to demonstrate is that we can meet the demand that exists today, particularly in our country, but this is true across the globe, around the AI surge that we're seeing. There's an AI arms race going on, if you will. And obviously, China is a major player in that with some of the announcements that they've made recently. The US has been a leader. We intend to be a leader. And by bringing our two companies together, we can continue to unlock opportunities in the new and the growing AI corridors that connect all these metros, as well as create a resilient digital infrastructure that's going to be required to win the AI race and achieve the economic and technological leadership that will come with that.
So, how does this acquisition align with Zayo's broader vision for enabling next generation connectivity, and speak mostly to those high demand sectors such as AI, like you just did, but a little bit deeper, AI, cloud, and also enterprise networking?
Yeah, so if you think about before this acquisition, we have consistently and significantly been investing in expanding and enhancing our network and by extension, the critical digital infrastructure in the country. So just to put some framework around that bold statement. So we've spent more than $20 billion over the last 5 years on fiber infrastructure. We're the only scaled and national fiber company that has been building new long-haul routes or AI corridors over the last 5 years since we went private. There's lots of smaller players that have been doing that regionally, and there's lots of players that have been overpulling existing networks. But in terms of building new networks that are required to meet the demands of the data center companies, the hyperscalers, enterprises, carriers, you name it, who are fueling this AI demand and next-gen technology, Zayo has been at the very center of that, and we've been spending significant dollars investing to be in a position to expand that AI ecosystem. So by acquiring Crown, what that does is that allows us to accelerate that vision because it provides enterprises with improved access to and customers with improved access to those networks and allows us to connect from the cloud to AI to the edge in a very seamless way, and now on a significantly greater geographic and metro basis.
So you talked a little bit about how this is going to affect your footprint, but what does the network look like with the addition of these assets, from a macro level, and what does that mean for the types of customers you're able to reach and serve?
Yeah, may I take your questions backwards? So it doesn't change our ability to serve the customers that we serve today primarily. So our customers today are the carriers. They're what we call the digital infrastructure providers. That's the hyperscalers. That's the data center companies. That's these large consumers of bandwidth that are building their own network. And then it's various slices of enterprise, large enterprise, public sector, medium enterprise, small enterprise. And historically, Zayo has not been as focused on the small and medium portion of enterprise. We do have customers there, particularly through acquisitions like Allstream. Zayo, or I should say Crown, and some of the legacy companies that Crown bought, including Light Tower, were very, very successful in serving that mid-market enterprise space. So in terms of new customers, the strategy here is we leverage the greater footprint and greater metro presence to offer more network and more services to our existing carrier digital infrastructure and large enterprise customers. And then we expand more aggressively, but also kind of going back to the roots of companies like Light Tower more effectively, I would say, into the mid-market space. And so what that looks like in terms of a footprint, if you think about Zayo today, we're almost 17 million fiber miles. We're almost 140,000 route miles. We've got about 28,000 on-net locations, think buildings that house enterprises. And we're in, 1,500 data centers. And so as you think about all these new metros, and they're all highly complementary, there's little to no overlap between our fiber assets and Crown's assets. You have this extension that looks like another 90,000 route miles. And combined with Crown, some 70,000 on-net locations where, again, our enterprise customers we'll be able to offer faster, more reliable, and more competitively priced services because we'll be on net in a lot more locations and with a lot more network.
You mentioned earlier that we are seeing unprecedented demand for fiber infrastructure, and it doesn't look like it's going to slow down anytime soon. So from your perspective, how does this deal position Zayo to meet those evolving needs of enterprises and hyperscalers as the years go by, right? Let's say over the next decade and beyond.
It accelerates that, right? We'd otherwise have to build what we're acquiring, and we would not be able to serve customers as effectively. So if you think about, and I know you know this well, and many of your listeners know this well, but just if we reground on what AI requires, the data processing power that AI requires also that fiber infrastructure exists to be able to handle the bandwidth requirements, the latency requirements, the resiliency requirements, the cost of ownership requirements. I mean, fiber is the artery that brings this all together. And so when hyperscalers, for example, they require massive amounts of bandwidth, and they not only require them in existing markets, but as everyone chases power, literally power, electrical power, coal power, natural gas power, to fuel the compute power that's required to fuel AI, you'll see data centers moving to different markets all over the country and in search of that power where there may or may not be sufficient fiber to bring the data back to central locations. So this acquisition really accelerates our ability to meet all of the various demands of AI and of the nation as we continue to position the U.S. as the leader globally in the AI revolution.
Okay, I'm getting inspired now. This is exciting. So let's keep going.
It's the best industry to be in these days. I mean, it really is.
Come on. This is so good. So good. So let's talk about bridging the digital divide. I was talking to someone actually just yesterday who lives in a very tiny little town in Missouri. And she said that she had to drive her kids to school and sit there and let them do their homework because her internet was really bad. It didn't work. And, when I hear stories like that, it just breaks my heart, number one. But number two, it makes me, I'm really present to our mission in the industry. And I know Zayo has a really strong mission as well to bring internet to everyone. So what is the work that Zayo is doing to bridge this digital divide and, really help to change America, if you will?
Yeah, to your point, Carrie, this is central to the work that we've done historically. We've really doubled down on it in the last few years. So I'll highlight two, maybe three things. So number one, we've engaged in public-private partnerships with the federal government, with state governments, local governments for really as long as Zayo has existed. We've done that through Legacy Zayo, as well as we've acquired companies like Education Networks of America that together with us make us the largest independent provider of federally funded E-rate services for schools, for libraries. And we've been doing that. We've helped local jurisdictions unlock about $1.5 billion in funding through partnerships in building networks and offering services to them. So we've been in the E-rate business for a long time. As I said, at this point, over 20%, the last time I checked, it was 22% of all school districts in the country buy services from Zayo. Secondly, I would highlight that when you think about the infrastructure dollars, federal dollars that first were approved during the COVID crisis and then extended into the infrastructure bill, there were lots of programs, the acronyms people know, like the NTIA Middle Mile Program or BEAD, which is going through some evolution until it's fully funded. But these are all public-private partnerships intended to help the financial case for building fiber and building technology out to unserved and underserved communities. And Zayo has been very, very successful in partnering with federal and state entities on those dollars. In the last 3 years alone, we've received over $300 million in grants tied to building network that are going to serve to close the digital divide, but also are going to, because we're doing it through fiber, are going to help promote economic development in those same communities, very often those same communities that don't have reliable access to the internet, which every consumer needs today to do things like homework and to shop and everything else. Those are the communities also that very often don't have the manufacturing base anymore or the industrial base anymore. And fiber in those communities not just allows you to connect every home, it also allows you to put data centers. It allows you to put smart manufacturing and other technologies that promote economic development. And then the third thing I would say is we're participating in the closing of the digital divide indirectly because what is happening, and I mentioned this earlier, is the long pole in the tent for AI, for the explosion in data that you see, isn't fiber. It isn't data centers. It isn't any other parts of the ecosystem. It's power. We're becoming power constrained in the existing markets. And so what you see happening is you see data center companies, you see hyperscalers moving now into non-NFL markets in search of readily available power. And when they do that, one of the byproducts of that is we and others build fiber to facilitate those data centers, but you also now take fiber out into communities that didn't have it before or relied on other technologies that weren't as advanced or weren't as powerful as fiber. So in all three of those ways, we've been laser focused on, it's a classic win-win, probably win and win, where we can do really well for society, for the world, and also do very well for our company, our customers, and our shareholders.
And it sounds like that there'll be many more jobs in our industry as well, which is exciting to hear for the future. And we need to get the word out about how great our industry is, just like you said.
And then you have to help us all with staffing related to it, Carrie. So it's talk about win-win.
We're ready. Let's go. Let's go. Let's grow this. I've been hearing a lot about AI compute hubs. Can you talk a little bit about, what does that mean? What's behind all the activity and also the implication for Zayo's business?
Yeah. So if you think about AI, so what is AI? At its core, and I'm sure more technically inclined people will, they'll watch your podcast and then they'll send me nasty notes about how I don't know what I'm talking about. But in its essence, AI is about the fast computation of data in ways that power is so fast and so much data that it powers applications that previously we could never imagine. So simple example, when you type in a query to GP chat, to you as the user, it feels like it's very simple and it's very narrow. But in order for that to be a powerful tool and to truly go out into the data world and collect everything on that topic and synthesize it all very quickly, massive amounts of data have to be computed in a very, very fast time period. So the way you do that infrastructurally is not terribly sexy. It's not nearly as sexy as the actual application, but it's incredibly important. And for those of us in the industry, we think it's sexy. But you need lots and lots and lots of places where data is both stored and it is computed and where it is trained. Because the other thing is you first have to train that data to do what you're asking it to do, and then you have to make the training model. So as you know very well, and many of your viewers will, so in AI there is training, which is where you take the data and you train it in the algorithms, you train it to do what you're trying to get it to do quickly and on its own, and to continue to learn through machine learning. And then there's inference, which is then the utilization of that training model. Well, you do that through lots and lots of places where data gets trained, gets crunched, and those are in data centers. And so these these AI compute hubs, as you call them, are simply data centers that are popping up in existing areas as well as in new areas to facilitate first, that training, and then B, secondly, that inference or that utilization of that training. And why that is so important and why first power is so important is because this computation, in addition to requiring, state-of-the-art chips that can do that kind of computation. It needs lots and lots of power to power the computation itself. But the other thing it then needs is it needs fiber for the transmission of the data. The data is into the model, the outputs of the model back to the end user. And as the largest independent builder and provider of fiber optic networks in the B2B context in the United States, in North America, this is really good for Zayo specifically because we provide that fiber connectivity, which then allows for those huge amounts of bandwidth and the transmission of that data from metro areas like the Bay Area all the way to other metro areas like Miami and everywhere in between. And that's what our networks do.
You did a really good job explaining that. And it was
I'm
clear
not sure
to me.
it's right, but I believe it. I'm not sure it's right, but I believe it.
I saw the vision. I saw it. Let's talk about the edge. And we're hearing more and more about the edge and bringing compute closer to the customer and to, that end consumer. So how does fiber facilitate this and also Zayo's role?
Yeah, the edge is one of those concepts that depending on who you listen to, you can get completely different answers about what is the edge. So I try not to geek out on the exact definition of the edge. The way I think about the edge, and let's just use your smartphone. Your smartphone is the edge. All the edge means is if you think about the network that ties this all together, if you think about the cloud or data centers where a lot of this data is crunched, whether it's for AI or it's for other digital purposes, all the edge is then the end customer, the end user of that infrastructure. And so a phone is always even though there's many more use cases than a phone, I realize a phone is a great way for me at least to envision what does the edge mean. It means where is the consumer going to, whether the consumer is a business, the consumer is an individual, where are they going to consume the output of all of this computation we're talking about and all of this data that we're talking about. And so, I was at Verizon for 15 years. I was in Verizon Wireless for a number of years, and it really always struck me as funny that people truly believe that wireless networks are entirely wireless, right?
Right.
I don't know what the percentage is. I would be wrong, so I won't guess at it. But the percentage of a wireless network that is truly wireless and reliant on the spectrum is very small compared to the percentage of a wireless network that is fiber. So I'm sure it's more than this, but in simple terms, from the tower in your neighborhood to the phone that you're on, that is a wireless connection. But that tower gets back to an aggregation point and then gets back to the cloud and then vice versa through lots and lots and lots of fiber. And we build that fiber for carriers to their towers. We build that fiber for data centers and hyperscalers, which are just massive data center companies. We build that fiber between their data centers, between the edge, the core, which is our network, as well as the cloud. And so the more the edge becomes, the demand happens on the edge, the more it fuels the build out of all this infrastructure that's required to get that seemingly simple edge point. I like to say, one of the examples I like to use in the digital infrastructure context, because people have heard the term the last mile, and everyone is infatuated with the last mile. And that can mean, for example, the fiber that runs from your street into your home, that's the last mile. Well, if you think about the national highway system, there aren't exits if you don't have highways. And it's very similar here. There is no edge if you don't have a core that connects all of those edges back to a core and back to the critical places to pick up the content, which includes the cloud. So the edge is really important for our industry and for Zayo because it helps to create the demand for the infrastructure that we're talking about.
So, Andres, we have been staffing for Zayo for many years, and we've just heard wonderful things about the culture. It sounds to me like there's going to be opportunities for jobs and growth, and there's a lot of excitement happening at Zayo. So, would you mind just talking briefly about the company culture there and why it's just a great place to work?
Yeah, I'm super proud of what we've continued to build on over the last. Zayo went private almost 5 years ago. In the first 13 years, the founder, Dan Caruso, and the various teams that worked with him, they created this incredible culture of entrepreneurialism, but that word can mean so many things. It was a smart, can-do culture where people cared about the customer, they cared about the work, they were passionate. They never let, they tackled really, really difficult challenges in bringing together at that point 45, 46 companies, and they were never daunted by that. And it was really, really hard work. And it just created this resiliency and this vision and this entrepreneurialism that is very hard to find in a lot of companies. And then I think since we took the company private in the second chapter, maybe the third chapter, depending on how you track it, under our investors' leadership, under Steve Smith's leadership, who I know has been on your show as well, our CEO, and then the ELT, what we've tried to do is build on that very best of Zayo, that entrepreneurial spirit, that can do, that company that customers loved for being agile and able to tackle difficult challenges for them. And what we've tried to do is at the same time try to scale, try to move out of the startup culture and start to put more fundamentals in place, start to optimize, professionalize, tackle some of our system and data and process debt, and just try to become a little bit more of a teenage company versus a startup company. And I think, we haven't always gotten it right, and we've made mistakes for sure. But I think today what you find coming to Zayo is that original entrepreneurialism, that original grit and determination, and it's a feeling still exists, but the work isn't as hard as it used to be. And things work a little bit better, and there's a little bit more automation and systems and things that you would find in a more mature company. So we've got more to do, but I think the culture is infectious. And the more success we have, and we've had a lot of success, particularly over the last couple of years, not just financially and in terms of growth, but also with our customers, the quality of our network, our employees. We've attracted some really great talent, and we've retained a lot of really good talent. It's an infectious place to work. It's an exciting place to work.
I have heard that. And Steve Smith, your CEO, was on my podcast a while back, and he goes really deep into the culture and leadership. So I would encourage everyone who's listening to check that out as well. Andres, let's look at the future. What role do you see Zayo playing in the global digital and fiber landscape in 5 years?
I think we're going to be smack dab in the center of that. Our mission is to deliver future-proof solutions and networks to help our customers connect what's next. And what that means to us is we've got to continue to consistently and substantially invest in growing our long-haul network, or our what we continuously call our AI corridors, as well as our metro networks. We need to continue to improve the quality of our experience and our network, not just the network experience, but your experience working with us, our people. We've got to continue to professionalize and optimize our organization, which we are as we continue to mature. And as we do that, I think between the track record of the company and the external forces and tailwinds around, yes, AI, but even reindustrialization of North America, the continued digitalization that's happening across enterprises, the continued cloudification. There's still a lot of companies who have not completed their journey to the cloud. All of those forces, 5G, what you see happening in and around our ecosystem, coupled with what we're trying to do to continue to position Zayo as the leader in the space, we're convinced those two forces put us at the center of the digital infrastructure ecosystem for many, many years to come.
It is a great time to be in our industry, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Andres, how can we reach Zayo?
Zayo.com. It's easy. The founders picked a name that always put us at the end with a Z, but was easy to remember because it was so different. So Zayo.com, I encourage you to visit, see what we're up to. We're doing some great work on behalf of our customers and on behalf of the country.
Andres, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. I always enjoy talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to Let's Get Digital. This podcast is powered by Broadstaff, a national staffing firm specializing in digital infrastructure talent. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and join me next time as we explore more stories at the intersection of technology, talent, and transformation. Until then, let's get digital.